What's up everybody, D-Man back, welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing another Godzilla -2 news and updates. In order to stay on top of the news, I'm going to be doing these as much as I can, and so today we're jumping back in for more. Today we'll go over additional details for Godzilla The Ride, The Great Clash, which I've just done a massive in-depth breakdown of. I would really appreciate if you go check that video out. Go over, watch that video, go throw it some likes. If that video gets enough support, I think we can maybe find a way to get some exclusive coverage of the new Godzilla The Ride on this channel, but I need you guys to support that video to make it work. But for now, we'll talk additional details for Godzilla The Great Clash, as well as what's going on with Godzilla in the DC universe. Obviously, there's a new Godzilla DC Comics crossover, but what does Takashi Yamazaki and Godzilla -1 have to do with all that? Let's talk about it. You guys, I'm so tired, I feel like I could just disappear into a different dimension right now, but I want to start out with some artwork like always, and this first piece comes to us from GNA. This is their Godzilla The Ride, The Great Clash art, and it's so awesome. Featuring that new, updated version of Godzilla -1, I guess you can tell it's an updated version because it doesn't have the scars on the chest or the cheek, and it features Godzilla standing in the water with the fire raging around him. You can see the explosions behind him and in front of him, capturing some of that imagery from the new Godzilla The Ride, but from a new perspective, which is pretty sweet. And I always love GNA's art, so I really wanted to show that off. This one's great. This one comes to us from Hinwaru, and this is their Shinseimaru art featuring Mizushima, Shikishima, Akitsu, and Noda. Very pretty. It's supposed to kind of look like if they had a photo of them taken on the Shinseimaru. I think it said it was like taken off the coast of Tokyo. It's a very beautiful art piece. I love character art. I love to see fan art depicting the main characters of Godzilla -1 rather than just Godzilla himself. A great cast and a really nice photo representing those characters. I think it's super good. Especially Noda looks fantastic. This was just amazing, but Yatsu Gelion shared this wonderful Godzilla -1 diorama. Is this custom made? I don't think they sold this. This looks to be, maybe the diorama itself is custom made, but the Godzilla is not. I don't know. I wish I had this kind of talent so freaking badly. You have no idea. I wish I could do this. Godzilla Odo form attacking Odo Island. He is currently tail striking this building into pieces. It is insane. How did they get that building to look like that? That is so cool. This piece is amazing. I'm a huge fan. Speaking of Noda, Mayan Yin Yim took their Noda plushie to the Godzilla store. You can see they have the Godzilla -1 statue on display there, which was not there when I went. And they took their little Noda plushie, their custom made Noda there, where they got to introduce him to Godzilla as well as the Godzilla store itself. Very fun, very cute. Wanted to show that one off. Mr. Goji put together this really eye-opening size chart featuring Shin Godzilla, Godzilla -1, and Godzilla Evolved standing next to each other, showing about how size accurate they are compared to one another. Hey, why did we stop updating the size chart image? That size chart image ran us from 2016 all the way until 2019. I don't know why we stopped updating that thing, but we really as a fan base should get back into it. Either way, I forget how huge Shin Godzilla is. Sometimes it's easy for me to forget that Shin Godzilla is not like -1 sized, or that -1 is not Shin Godzilla size. -1 only comes up to the thigh on Shin Godzilla. He would get smushed by those thunder thighs. Not to mention Godzilla Evolved could just step on the poor lad. It's pretty cool as well to see the size comparison between Godzilla Evolved and Shin Godzilla. Obviously, I think this is actually going more off the official heights for Godzilla Evolved, which still places him at about 394 feet, rather than boosting his height to where it seems like he has been boosted to somewhere in the 400 range. But either way, very cool image showing off the new sizes, and I really like this comparison between the modern Godzillas. It's pretty sweet. Toho really will market anything. I've said this before, but I'll continue to say it. New Godzilla Battle Line metal plate nail clippers were released, featuring Godzilla Battle Line designs such as this one, which features Godzilla -1. There's also a normal Godzilla, there's a Kiryu, and then there's a Shin Godzilla, which is my personal favorite. He looks fantastic, but what the heck, man? The day came. It finally came when we have Godzilla nail clippers. I never thought that would occur. We also have some Godzilla 70th anniversary and Godzilla -1 bath towels. The Godzilla -1 one is pretty standard, but the Godzilla 70th anniversary one features that wonderful image of one Godzilla from each era doing their big atomic breaths together, ripped straight from the Tokyo Metro government building short film. This image is obviously fantastic. It does show like a representation of each Godzilla, which is very cool, and I'm a big fan of it. These are pretty cute, but some Godzilla bubbling sea battle line cups were released. The first one features Godzilla in this bubbling cup pattern. I really like the Shin Godzilla one with those colors. That's great. The Godzilla -1 one is also so very cool with the color palette as well. And then there's a Mothra one. I honestly don't know what these are, but some Birdroll Godzilla Gilms reflectors were released. You're supposed to wear these, it says. I guess they just reflect light. They shine when you wear them. They're kind of like necklace pieces, but these little accessories, there's one of Godzilla -1, which I believe is actually a new render of Godzilla -1 from the side view, and then Godzilla's foot from Godzilla -1. Very cool. A new Godzilla 3D action puzzle was announced. The first one features Godzilla 1994, which is the Godzilla from Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, aka pretty much the most standard version of Godzilla you could get from the Heisei series. Very cool here. It's a little 3D puzzle you can assemble. You can see it there. And then there's a Godzilla -1 one, which is a little different than the other one. Obviously, this features a bit of an updated design, especially you can see in the spines that it's -1 inspired, but this is very cool as well. You can put the whole thing together and then you can like press a little thing on its back and its arms will move and its mouth will roar, which is pretty neat. Godzilla Prize Big 2 deformed plushies were revealed. There's a new Godzilla, which has his back all charged up, and then you've got the atomic glow coming from his mouth. Additionally, there are like plasticky versions, so there's the Godzilla and then the burning Godzilla, which I think might be piggy banks, but I'm not totally sure. A Godzilla -1 Ichibansho Monster Stampede Heat Ray Bust was revealed. This is $99 and looks fantastic. Holy crap. Wonderful detail on this thing. Obviously, Ichibansho is the company that made that wonderful Godzilla model that Takashi Yamazaki was always carrying around. It comes on this nice base with the G-1.0 logo on it. The paint job is really incredible on this thing. I really like the way they've painted up the mouth to make it look glowing like that. The spines look great as well, and those eyes are so striking. Very cool stuff. More Godzilla Tsutaya satellite shops are opening up. I've got it listed here so you can see where they're opening up. If you're in Japan, they're all over the place. I highly recommend going and checking them out. They're pretty cool. They always release little images of them, and they always look very neat. They carry lots of Godzilla merch, and again, not all of them carries the same Godzilla merch, which is pretty cool. So you can kind of go and find different merch at each one. The Godzilla Store Yonago Tenmaya branch is opening up from August 1st to August 17th in the Yonago Tenmaya first floor Shinmachi Plaza. There's a new poster for this collaboration here with Godzilla standing in front of the building with this nice beautiful mountain range in the background. I'm really happy that the Godzilla stores are starting to branch out and get all of these pop-up locations. It's a really great way to expand Godzilla's reach through all parts of Japan. I remember my friend Kaiju Noir lived in Japan for many years, and he said that aside from Tokyo, you really couldn't find much Godzilla hype anywhere but maybe Osaka. And so it's cool that they're spreading Godzilla more and more throughout the country to get Godzilla more well known. Very neat stuff. On that same note, some more Godzilla store pop-ups are coming to the Kanagawa Prefecture, specifically at Ito Yokado Lalaport Yokohama stores. And you can see they have a variety of Godzilla goods going on sale, including figures, plushies, and more. Very cool stuff. I'm just happy to see this stuff spreading throughout Japan. The more this stuff spreads and takes hold, the more popular Godzilla gets, and the more Godzilla content we can start to get. I'm talking films, anime, and of course games, which I know you guys are very hyped about. Toho US dropped their own press release for Godzilla The Ride Great Clash. Once again, I already have an enormous deep dive into Godzilla The Ride Great Clash on the channel already. I highly recommend going and checking that video out. It goes super in depth in it, and again, I really do think if that video gets enough support, there's a decent chance that together I can go bring you guys exclusive content for this channel, which would be pretty amazing. Anyways, we got some new aspect ratios for that Godzilla The Ride banner. Some of them are cropped, some of them aren't. Very cool stuff. Going through that US press release, it's mostly the same as the information I covered in that other video, but it does say, get ready for an ocean battle between Godzilla and an all-new Takashi Yamazaki designed Mechagodzilla. This will debut, and they changed the name here, Mechagodzilla Kiju Type 0 G-Breaker. It's a little different than the title we covered in the last video. Kiju, I don't know what that little title means, but Mechagodzilla Kiju Type 0 G-Breaker, and in fact, later on in the article, they just specifically refer to this Mechagodzilla as Kiju, which might be like the new version of Kiryu. You know, Kiryu was the Mechagodzilla codename in the Millennium era, and so that could be the new code name for this Godzilla, although I prefer the name Mechagodzilla 0 given the Mechagodzilla Type 0 subtitle. It just complements Godzilla -1 better. On that note, I did get some comments about people saying that they don't think that this is the Godzilla -1 design. They think that this is the Godzilla The Ride design. I will say, we have even higher quality images of the new Godzilla design here. This is an even higher quality. This is actually, I think, the most high quality version of this image on the internet right now. The spines on the back do look a lot more Godzilla The Ride. I'll give you that. They look to be much more shrunken down, especially the bottom ones look a lot more Godzilla The Ride than Godzilla -1. They don't seem to be ejected the same way -1s were, but I still do strongly strongly think that this is the Godzilla -1 design modified rather than the Godzilla The Ride design modified. The main reasons I think that are because the mouth, seen in this close-up image, does feature the -1 mouth, with the multiple kind of crazy layers of teeth going on, as opposed to the very clean Godzilla The Ride teeth. Also, overall, it's a much sharper Godzilla. It just is the Godzilla -1 design. The difference is in the spines. It's really the spines is what's different. Other than the spines, this looks to be the identical Godzilla -1 design, and there were a lot of changes made from Godzilla The Ride to Godzilla -1. Some images don't represent that as well as others, but just take the Bandai Movie Monster Series Godzilla, for instance. The Godzilla The Ride one also kind of holds his hands out like this more, like it's just a different Godzilla. It's a different posture, it's a different color palette, it's a different Godzilla. I did see a very interesting comment that I actually think gives us an indication on where the Godzilla -1 sequel is heading, and that's that maybe the reason that Godzilla has a new spine shape is because the original Godzilla -1 spines were so large that it limited Godzilla's mobility. If you think about the Godzilla -1 figures, they were some of the least mobile Godzilla figures simply due to the spines. Like the SH Monster Arts Godzilla -1 couldn't really articulate as well as you'd hope due to those massive spines. This is an issue you avoid if you shrink the spines down, and the reason that's important is because if Godzilla's going to be in more action sequences, he's going to need a lot wider range of motion, and the enemy monster is going to need to be maneuvering around him in ways that you're going to have to be way more conscious of his spines than you used to be. So, one of the reasons they may have changed the way his spines operate is they may have shrunken them down to give him more combat mobility. This makes this a more combat-ready version of Godzilla -1. Also, I can only imagine they're changing the way Godzilla's atomic breath operates because that Fat Man-styled explosion seen in Godzilla -1 is, first of all, quite overpowered. It would probably decimate any kaiju it goes up against. Like, if it blasts this Mechagodzilla, it's going to obliterate it, I'm sure. But also, another reason I would think they would change it is because it was too slow, and also it damaged Godzilla. It was very thematic for Godzilla -1, but if he's in a battle, you're probably going to change back to the traditional beam. So maybe that's another reason the spines aren't quite ejecting the same way, is because we're moving away from the implosion-type detonation that we saw in Godzilla -1. Finally, it says, attendees serve as Godzilla surveillance crew members for Edge, and this has been described as a splash ride. That is something we talked about in the last video, but if you're going on this ride, prepare to get wet. It's going to splash you. In addition to the new HD images we got in this press release, Toho released some HD wallpapers for the new Godzilla The Ride Great Clash. We have this one of the title card for the thing. We have a new wallpaper version of it, and then we have a mobile version wallpaper of it, which kind of just compresses it a little bit. Looks like it's actually just kind of cropped. Like, I don't think they actually changed the positioning of Godzilla and Mechagodzilla at all for this, but it's just cropped a little different is all. But that's the mobile version. If you want to download any of those, you can use the links in the description below. Mr. Goji compared the new Mechagodzilla from Takashi Yamazaki to some of the concept art for Godzilla vs. Kong. Now, this is again something we go in depth with in the last video, but the tail for the new Mechagodzilla seems to have been pulled straight from Godzilla vs. Kong. Many people have pointed out that the design itself looks a lot like a mix between the Ready Player One Mechagodzilla and Godzilla 2021, which I can kind of see both of those influences and inspirations. Oh, one last note I wanted to bring up about the new Mechagodzilla design is a lot of people were talking about how wide the teeth are, saying that it looks kind of ridiculous, and that's the thing throwing off the face for a lot of people. One theory I have on why the teeth are so large is because if you can see, there's a giant cannon in Mechagodzilla's mouth. Like maybe it's a big rail gun or something, but in order to protect that, give it a housing unit, you would give Mechagodzilla really wide teeth so that when he closes his mouth, there's no gap for Godzilla to be able to damage the new beam weapon inside of Mechagodzilla's mouth. Anyways, the Godzilla vs. Kong concept art, I can definitely see the inspiration. If Takashi Yamazaki took any, it would make sense if he did. You can see there's that circular hinge on the jaw for Mechagodzilla, which seems to have been pulled from some of that concept art, and the chest plating for Mechagodzilla looks very similar to some of that concept art as well. Some of those concept ideas were really cool, like the Godzilla skin that would dissolve over the course of the film. It's a shame they didn't go with that. But either way, that's the new Mechagodzilla. And that brings us to DC. What is going on with DC? Is there going to be a new Godzilla film from DC? I've seen some people get very optimistic about this, and I've seen some other headlines kind of misleading about what's going on, where it like totally makes you seem like, oh, Takashi Yamazaki is going to DC Studios to have a meeting about making a new movie. Let me set the record straight. First of all, it's kind of goofy to me that Takashi Yamazaki has become the go-to guy when a Hollywood or foreign film wants to promote in Japan. They go to Takashi Yamazaki to have him say nice things about the movie. We first saw this, which made sense with Godzilla Kong The New Empire, where Adam Wingard and Takashi Yamazaki did some collaboration interviews, and then Takashi Yamazaki had his own press tour in Japan for Godzilla Kong The New Empire, hyping up the movie and saying what he liked about it, and in particular, him hyping up Mothra in the new movie. Then we saw it happen with Mickey 17, which made sense because Bong Joon-ho directed Parasite. He is a foreign film director, obviously from Korea, I believe, and it was his first Hollywood picture, so it was a pretty big deal. Takashi Yamazaki's following a similar arc, going from Godzilla -1 to his upcoming Hollywood picture, so it kind of followed a similar pattern, made sense for those guys as well. Mission Impossible kind of came came out of nowhere. I have no idea what was going on with Mission Impossible. I think I've even heard some people saying that Yamazaki is doing some Disney stuff now, promoting some Disney Plus TV shows, like maybe even Andor or something. I haven't seen any of that, but again, that one at least makes a little more sense because Takashi Yamazaki is a huge Star Wars fan. Obviously, there was a big Star Wars premiere. Dave Filoni threw him for Godzilla -1, and then Takashi Yamazaki appeared at Star Wars Celebration. But now, after the Mission Impossible crossover with Tom Cruise, which I did a video talking about where Tom Cruise kind of spoils a little bit about the upcoming Godzilla movie, which is pretty cool. Go check that video out for more details. Now, we arrive at James Gunn going to Takashi Yamazaki to promote the new Superman movie, which is pretty cool. I saw the Superman movie. I loved it. I talked about it a little bit in a previous video because James Gunn said it was heavily inspired by Godzilla -1 and Ultraman, which I really, after seeing the movie, Ultraman makes a lot of sense. There's tons of Ultraman influence throughout that film. Godzilla -1, I didn't see as much, but hey, who am I to judge? In this, it's very wholesome because both directors are so hyped to meet each other. Takashi Yamazaki is so excited to meet James Gunn, and James Gunn seems equally as excited to meet Takashi Yamazaki. They do it over Zoom, which is nice. James Gunn says he is a big fan of Godzilla -1 because it's such a beautiful film. He praises how it is a spectacle film, but also is still true to the nature of Godzilla while being earnest and bringing out the human elements first and foremost. He especially loves how Godzilla -1 isn't a parody of Godzilla films. It's not self-aware. It is simply a love letter to the Godzilla films of the past, which is something I've also discussed on the channel, where it feels like the American films have always been a little self-conscious about being Godzilla films, where they feel the need to sometimes poke fun at the movies. This wasn't the case for 2014, but this has been the case ever since. They kind of feel the need to poke fun at previous Godzilla films, like they're a little self-conscious to just be Godzilla films and embrace it full force like -1 did. James Gunn also then says Godzilla -1 is one of his favorite movies of the last few years. He then talks about how he loved when kaiju would appear in comics, and that's why he wanted to include the kaiju in the Superman movie. And then Takashi Yamazaki compliments Superman, with James Gunn saying those compliments from Yamazaki are some of the nicest he has heard so far. James Gunn says Superman is the anti-Godzilla, which I thought was pretty cool, a force of kindness and hope, and directly contrasts with Godzilla, who is a force of the mistakes of the past. That is already the perfect dynamic for a Superman versus Godzilla movie. We also saw what would happen if Superman fought a kaiju in the Superman movie, and while that kaiju doesn't have the atomic breath, which could really do some major damage to Superman as we saw in the crossover comic book, it was also still giving Superman quite the challenge. Echoing some of the things I've discussed over time, James Gunn then mentions the important part of powerful characters is showing how they can be defeated, because it simply raises the stakes. Having a character so powerful that they are never in danger is, quite frankly, boring. He also says that the thing that makes powerful characters work is when you ground them with relatable human emotions and conflict, and I could not agree more. I think Godzilla -1 and Superman are great examples of that. He then says -1 is a beautiful and revolutionary film because it combines artsy film with heart, love, and passion that still captures a blockbuster spirit. He says -1 is that times 1,000 because it's clear Yamazaki loves Godzilla and the characters of the movie, the main characters, the human cast. It's clear Yamazaki cares about them personally and their stories. He talks also about how Yamazaki thinks outside the box when making VFX. He says that there are currently only about 3 or 4 filmmakers pushing the boundaries of the industry and admires them, and Yamazaki is among one of those 4, and they're one of the few that he currently admires. They then share in the pressure and anxiety of making a blockbuster movie and releasing that film, and how they're both just now getting used to it. It's clear Yamazaki's not used to the main pressure and main stage that he's on with Godzilla -1 at the moment, and so you can see some of those anxieties start to be reflected in his interviews with Tom Cruise and now his interviews with James Gunn. He's got this. I believe in him. I know you guys do too. I wish we could all be there to give him a supportive hand and just let him know that at least all of us here think he's doing a great job, it seems. So I'm excited for what he does next. Finally, and this is where the kind of clickbait comes from, James Gunn wants to get Takashi Yamazaki's details so he can bring him out to DC Studios and show him the new Superman costume. Now, I've seen some people kind of take that headline and sort of twist it into being like, James Gunn's bringing Takashi Yamazaki in, official talks have begun between Takashi Yamazaki and DC Studios. That's not the case. Takashi Yamazaki mentioned that he took conversations with Marvel and wasn't able to take any projects because he's working on other stuff. Dave Filoni was like, Takashi Yamazaki should direct a Star Wars movie. It's a shame he's busy with other stuff, but didn't actually offer him a project specifically. And this is not even a case where James Gunn didn't even offer him something, but if he were to, I know just the project. I don't think this is coming anytime soon. James Gunn has made it clear he is a big Godzilla fan. He's talked about Godzilla at length before. He's a huge Ultraman fan. He's a big kaiju lover. There's obviously a kaiju in the new movie that gets quite a lot of love and is treated pretty poorly at times, but James Gunn has clearly a big love for the kaiju genre. He also hyped up Godzilla Kong: The New Empire when it was coming out. He was a big fan of that. He's not stopped singing the praises of -1 recently. If there was a way forward for Godzilla to have a crossover with DC, it would would be James Gunn opening the door, and that door could be opened now more than ever with the DC animated films. DC Animation recently had Batman crossover with things like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so it's possible that Godzilla could, especially given the popularity of the new Godzilla vs. Kong vs. the Justice League comics, which are on their second run right now. The first run was so successful, we're in the middle of a sequel which is now bringing in the Toho Big Four, King Ghidorah, Mothra, and Rodan, and Mechagodzilla was already in the first run, so pretty big deal going on with DC and Godzilla right now. And the thing that makes this so much more solid than what's going on with Marvel is that while Marvel Comics is crossing over with Godzilla, they have no film rights to Godzilla. Warner Bros. Is distributing both the MonsterVerse films and the DC movies. It's important to note though that Legendary is the one producing those Godzilla films. All that to say, there isn't a door open right now. I haven't seen one opened anyways, maybe behind the scenes, but publicly no doors are open. But if a door were to open, it would be pretty interesting to see Takashi Yamazaki's take on the Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong. Now that is not his Godzilla, it's not his universe, so it'd be even more fascinating to see his take on that material. I wouldn't get your hopes up. I know I've seen a lot of people excited about that. DC Comics has crossed over with so much stuff in the past that has not materialized into a crossover film yet. Toho is wanting to make a big push, especially in the United States, to get new fans involved, so there's always the possibility we could get a Godzilla crossover with DC and that Takashi Yamazaki could be involved. I would think if there is going to be a crossover with DC and Godzilla, Takashi Yamazaki won't be there for it and there'll be some US filmmakers involved. That's my guess. They'll probably be adapting the comics rather than like having Yamazaki's spin on the material. And again, Yamazaki is not the director or any creator involved with the US side of Godzilla, so I don't see that door opening. If it was to open, that would be the material I'd be most interested in seeing him tackle, but I don't know, you guys. I haven't seen the door open. Either way, just wanted to cover this so we could stay on top of the news. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. If you want to support the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below where you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. And if that's not your thing, please consider joining as a channel member. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you all next time for the next one. D-Man, out.